Okay.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sandy Baird, and I'm here with the Vermont Institute of Community and International Involvement for another Wednesday night public discussion of important issues. And reminding everybody that this is a discussion, so please chime in with all of your dissidents or agreements and comments. Tonight we have with us Rob Williams. Rob Williams is a professor at a lot of places, right? Champlain, UVM, right? St. Michael's.
Yeah.
And has been a professor at Burlington College many years ago with some of us. And he also has a bachelor's degree from Princeton, and that's kind of surprising given the fact that Rob is a dissenter in a lot of ways. And he also has a PhD from the University of New Mexico. And he also edits and publishes a journal called the Vermont Independent. He has been active politically for years, and he's certainly an engaged citizen, really of the world, also of Vermont. So Rob is with us tonight to talk about what's called the Great Reset, maybe to explain a little bit, and also to ask for any questions and to discuss that idea. So go ahead, Rob. Nice to have you.
Sandy, thank you for that wonderful introduction. Welcome, everybody. So nice to see some familiar faces. And I look forward to doing this again face-to-face very soon. If you don't have a pen or a pencil and a piece of paper, we're going to go retro here. We're going to go analog. Maybe grab a pen or pencil and piece of paper, because I'm going to ask you for your thoughts on a couple of things as we move through this, what I hope will be a conversation. So everybody it's okay? I can make it a little bigger. How's that?
Yeah.
So let me give you a quick outline what I'm thinking about for tonight, kind of approaching this. So Sandy has welcomed everybody. I'd like to, in a moment, read a quick excerpt from a new book I'm working on called COVIDtopia, which has everything to do with the Great Reset, as you'll see. Before we get there, though, I'd like to recommend two books. If you have not yet read COVID-19, The Great Reset, anybody read this book? Show of hands.
Who wrote it?
This is written by these two gentlemen here, Klaus Schwab, who is the founder and current chairman of the World Economic Forum, and Thierry Malloret, who's a Frenchman very much involved. So take note of the title, COVID-19, The Great Reset. To understand the Great Reset, you have to understand COVID-19. And I would say that COVID-19, the Great Reset, is probably the single best authoritative source on, shall we say, the pros, the positive benefits, real or imagined, of the Great Reset. And then there's a brand new book for a second point of view, published by our own Vermont press, Chelsea Green. This is a book that sold 100,000 copies in advance on Amazon in the month of April last month, before it even hit the stands. This is a book that is now on every single bestseller book list in the country, except for, wait for it, the New York Times. And that is this book right here, The Truth About COVID-19, Exposing the Great Reset, Lockdowns, Vaccine Passports, and the New Normal. Why We Must Unite in a Global Movement for Health and Freedom, written by Dr. Joseph Mercola and Ronnie Cummins, with a foreword by the great environmental lawyer, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who helped save the Hudson River here in New York City, which I am looking at right now from my perch, mother's little apartment here in Ossining, New York. One more time, COVID-19, The Great Reset by Klaus Schwab and Thierry Malloret, and The Truth About COVID-19, Exposing the Great Reset, Lockdowns, Vaccine Passports, the New Normal, Why We Must Unite in a Global Movement for Health and Freedom. I just interviewed Ronnie Cummins, who, if you don't know, is the founder and current head of the Organic Consumers Association. This is a global organization devoted to organic food and policy. They've got 2 million members on Facebook, although their Facebook page has been much threatened of late. So you can watch that on YouTube by searching Vermont Independent, And that interview with Ronnie will be near the top of the list. We had a very interesting conversation. He's an interesting guy. I had never met him before. Lives in Minnesota. Okay, from there, we're going to talk a bit about the founder of the World Economic Forum, the guy who coined the phrase Great Reset. That is Klaus Schwab. I have a few things to say about him. And then from there, we're going to take a look at a couple of very short videos put out by the World Economic Forum about the Great Reset. And then I want to share a few thoughts about the relationship between COVID-19 and the Great Reset. And then we'll end with some, hopefully, dialogue, some hard questions, some good answers. But along the way, I'm going to throw out a couple of tasks for you that I hope you'll find fun. Any questions about that particular agenda or outline there? We're going to do all that in 83 minutes, I hope. At least we're going to try.
Okay.
All right, here we go. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And,
Lost you.
I see we got chat feature going. Oh, Michael, thank you. Yes, you worked with them. Okay, great. Oh no, we're good. I'm just switching up here. Can you see chapter 1 now?
Yes.
On and identifying the COVID catastrophe. Everybody see that?
Right.
Great. Yeah. So this is just a few words about solutions. You know how when you read a book about a particular sort of dilemma the world is struggling with, if they get around to solutions, it's always in the last chapter of the book. How many of you have had this experience?
Oh, yeah. Always.
Yeah, always.
Always. So we're going to start with solutions tonight. So this is from chapter 1 of a book I'm writing called COVIDtopia. Begin with a beautiful reality. We humans, each of us, is a highly evolved self-organizing system. In our gloriously flawed evolutionary uniqueness, we are comprised of, give or take, 30 trillion cells, 40 trillion bacteria, and 380 trillion viruses in or on human body, claims Dr. Anthony Fauci's National Institute of Health initiative, dubbed the Human Microbiome Project. This was begun about 15 years ago. Human Microbiome Project. Anybody heard of the Human Microbiome Project?
No.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you?
One of you, 2 of you. Oh, good, great. 380 trillion viruses, you say? Yes, including coronaviruses. Given our astonishingly complex human microbiome, how do we highly evolved humans, both individually and as a species, become healthy, strong, and happy? Dozens of ways. Practicing daily breathing protocols, we humans have invented myriad options for deepening our spiritual life through mindfulness, prayer, and meditation. Cultivating clean water and growing fresh, nutritious food. Pursuing regular exercise outside in nature, walking, hiking, running, swimming, climbing, all of which contribute to our ongoing evolutionary success as a species. Resting every evening, allowing our minds, bodies, and spirits to recuperate from the creative complexities of daily living. Developing relationships with other living beings. Anyone else?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hey, Rob, it's Leslie Becker.
Leslie.
Hey, it was the contrast between the feeling of disaster at the beginning and the promise of the peaceful images, you know, the fish in particular at the end, and the quick cuts, so that I just came away with the feeling of urgency.
Yeah. And just to piggyback on that, I was struck by how quickly we turned the whole global economy on a dime.
Yeah.
That was hopeful, or perhaps a bit simplistic. Love it. Leslie, good to have you here.
Yeah, it was. I was also saying, Rob, it was a little over promising, I thought.
Yeah, maybe a little bit of that. Good. Anyone else?
Yeah, I guess my name is Jane
Hi,
Hindley. I
Jane.
would say that the machinery that what were they, bulldozers? In the midst of all the people, the machinery that was represented felt a little felt threatening to me.
Yeah, those big earth movers. I'm trying to find them here, but I may have passed them by. But excellent. Thank you for sharing that. We'll go on the fish. Anybody else?
Yeah, the overuse of climate change and ecological disasters images as to make you feel that they're on the right side, they're here to heal you. Look how we're gonna all die, so we need that reset.
We need to push that button.
Yes.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you. Yeah, very good.
Maybe,
yeah.
maybe the general feeling that this is all due to overpopulation.
Yeah, you do get that sense. I mean, what kind of tipped you off there? I'm sorry, I can't see who's talking, but that's a great point.
Oh, Nancy Rice.
Oh, hi, Nancy. Yeah,
It all tipped me off because it's on my mind a lot.
Yeah. And there is a very strong sort of, some would say, I think politely, there's a very strong kind of population control elements embedded in this World Economic Forum. You said Fourth Industrial Revolution plan. I refer to it, for those of you who are Harry Potter fans, I refer to it as the E who must not be named, eugenics. The E who must not be named, as opposed to Voldemort, the evil wizard in Harry Potter, who of course is he who must not be named.
Right.
It's the E who must not be named. And yeah, there is a very strong sort of element here. And in Schwab, I don't want to belabor Klaus Schwab's personal history, but if you're interested, you can read more about him. And there's definitely some interesting E who must not be named activity in his own sort of personal background, which I find important and fascinating. Well, let me stop this. Let me show you one more. If I can find it. Where did I put it? I had like multiple tabs open here, so let me find it. Here it is. So this was this video actually. Let me cue it up here. This video caused quite some consternation when it was kind of making the rounds. This is from. So this is no longer. This video is no longer available on the World Economic Forum YouTube page. They took it down for reasons which may become apparent. But it has been. It lives on, of course, in a million different places on YouTube. It's called the World Economic Forum. By 2030, you'll own nothing, and you'll be happy.
I have a question. Who put this out?
So this was put out by the World Economic Forum. They were roundly criticized, and they took it down. And so I just pulled it off of one of the many other sites. People thought it important to keep this video up. And play. So let me play it for you. And again, watch closely and then maybe jot down a couple of reactions to it. And again, this was produced by Klaus Schwab and the World Economic Forum. Oh, you know what? Hang on. I don't think I clicked the, let me click the sound button. Oh yeah, okay, it's good. All right, here we go. Sorry, and let me start it again, because the premise here is 8 predictions, right? 8 predictions for the world in 2030, and they number each one. You can see the number in the upper left corner of the video screen as they kind of roll through these predictions. So I meant to make that clear. So this is the World Economic Forum, 8 predictions for the world in 9 years.
Okay, make it full screen. How about that?
I can. Sometimes that messes with the sound, but let's try it. How's that? Everybody see that?
Yeah.
It's
Oh,
better.
good. Oh, excellent. Okay, great. Here we go. All right. So maybe take 5 seconds if you haven't, curious to jot down a thought or two about that. Maybe we could talk for a moment about why you think that was so controversial. Why it provoked so much consternation.
Total control.
Yeah.
Well, and
By whom though? By whom?
yeah, yeah. And Robin, like, where in that 90 seconds did you feel that most strongly, would you say?
Mm.
I'm just thinking back.
I mean, a lot of the things are actually very good, things that one would want.
Such as?
Yeah, such as.
Well, controlling fossil fuels. And I mean, I have an earlier complaint. You called it eugenics. I would say contraceptives. I mean, the population is a problem in terms of dealing with climate change that has to be figured out.
Yeah, one way or another. Good. Other reactions?
I would like to say about both videos, you know what they ignore totally is war and the military.
Right.
They ignore that to, I think, disastrous analysis. The problem with much of the world, including the emission of fossil fuels, is war. I don't understand why that is eliminated from all that consideration is eliminated even from any discussions of climate change.
Yeah, I think
I don't get it. I don't approve. I totally disagree with it. And it's one of my biggest disagreements with the climate change movement.
but it's done on purpose. To
Why?
me, it's done on purpose, especially, these videos, because I've been working on videos and mass media, and then it's made to, of course, you can't deny that there will be disasters, but don't scare people.
Huh?
Give them the sense that, we control the situation. People, look, it starts in some years, you won't even owe nothing and you'll be happy. So it's more of a cult, and a brainwashing. I mean, it's very, very pernicious.
Yes.
Eh? Very, very pernicious.
Yeah, and the use of phrases like the sharing economy,
Mhm.
which was sort of introduced about 10 years ago, and Uber. Just to give one example, Uber and Lyft, kind of ride sharing apps are going to make the private ownership of cars obsolete. And to Robin's point, well, maybe that's a good thing because cars use fossil fuel. But to Sandy's point, we're burning collectively 8 billion of us on the planet. Last time I checked, we're burning 90 million barrels of oil a day, and there's about, I think it's 60 gallons of oil in a barrel. The biggest oil burning country, of course, is the United States at 22 million barrels a day, and the biggest single oil burning organization is the Pentagon.
Yeah.
At 1 million barrels of oil a day to kind of keep the U.S. imperial war machine chugging along. So yeah, I tend to agree with you, Sandy, and I talk with my students about this in my environmental history and policy classes. To critique climate change without critiquing war and war-making empires seems a fool's errand.
Exactly. I don't get it.
Yeah.
I don't get it. Never have.
Yeah. So other reactions here to this 90-second, we will own nothing and be happy by 2030?
Well, when it says Western values will have been tested to the breaking point, what Western values are they talking about?
I left the still shot here for a reason, because I think this is like the most interesting part of the video for me anyway. Yeah. Yeah. What Western values? Democracy, representative government, privacy.
Yeah,
The sanctity of private property, the sanctity of human individual rights as enshrined by the Bill of Rights or the Nuremberg Code after World War II, informed consent, health, freedom, to bring it back around to COVID. You know, it's a great question. It's a great question.
Well, then they haven't mentioned
Anyone
anything about eating food.
Well, they did mention we're going to eat far less meat.
yeah, they did.
Let meat, yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
and you know, of course, that that Bill Gates and Ted Turner and a lot of these Davos crowd types are investing heavily in farmland across
Right.
not just the United States but the world, and they're also investing heavily in faux meat.
Mhm.
And
I'd say that as a guy married to a vegan who is forced to eat a Beyond Beef burger once a week, and it's a fascinating gastronomic exercise, let's say. So, yeah. Other thoughts, reactions?
It's,
Yeah, oh, go ahead.
well, it's still saying that it, I mean, there, well, I tend to believe, I think the beef producers are still, I can't imagine that they're not going to be very powerful. They've been, the jungle, when the jungle was written, it seems like it, about their power, about the disgusting things that they, that the beef, that the meat producers do. It seems to be holding still true today in COVID, and they seem to have a lot of power. I guess I'm puzzled as to where they think that we will. I mean, besides that meat substitutes exist, I I still think that the beef, that the meat producers will be powerful. And also, well, I mean, I don't know, well, and well, I mean, how will they give up power, and where, and the idea, I mean, it was, I mean, yeah, they did talk about concentration of power, but they don't, I'd like to hear that elaborated more, with just a few governments, yeah.
Yeah, it's a great question. And just to your point about beef, I find this sort of an arresting image. And some of you know I'm a retired grass-fed yak beef farmer, so I'm actually a big fan of decentralized grass-fed meat production. I'm no fan of CAFOs and concentrated animal feedlots and that sort of thing. I think those are abhorrent. But it's curious, to Eric's point about storytelling and digital media production, that when they're making an argument for eating less meat, they show us kind of a pristine forest. And anybody who's familiar with the power of agriculture as a destructive force on the landscape might, at this moment in the video, ask themselves the question about how intensive agriculture is as destructive a force as, say, intensive cattle ranching, or maybe in a different sort of way. Anyway, that was one thing that sort of came to my mind here. Anyone
Yeah,
else?
all these videos, there's no way to question why do we have climate change, why we have these disasters. There's always a solution. And in this instance, the solution will be money. We pay for carbon so we can pollute as much as we can. No mention of, and growth, instead of, like we are always in this line of perpetual growth. We'll find solutions. Don't worry, you don't have to have anything in your pocket. We'll take care of you. So it's very pernicious. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not only top down, it's sort of paternalistic in a way. Of Robin's point of earlier about sort of the top down approach, and if not that, then what, right? In terms of grappling with these big problems. Well, let's do this.
Rob, could I make one more comment?
Yeah.
It also ignores crucial individual rights. They're in these schemes, what they're really talking about, the destruction of Western values. A key Western value is the sovereignty of the individual conscience. And that will be destroyed by the type of control these people want over everyone's lives, including the control over women's bodies. When they're talking about overpopulation, what they really mean is that women have to address that in some way. They have to, like in China, be mandated how many births they're going to have, how many abortions they're going to be mandated to have in a place like China, and how though the population problem is going to be solved by government control of women and not by women themselves. If you really want, which I question really, if you really want to address population, you empower women to make those decisions about their reproductive lives. No mention of that anywhere.
Well, no, the population organizations talk about that all the time. That's their big thing, empower women.
Good, but this does not, is what I'm trying to say. The World Economic Forum does not value individual moral choices.
Yeah.
Those choices have to be made by the government, meaning the government that Rob is talking about, the partnership between global governments, the UN, big capital, and big pharma, big media, big capitalists. That's what they're really talking about, is control by those people.
Yeah, well, when they say that you will own nothing, they don't address who will own it.
Good point.
The whole thing seems kind of dystopian to me, Rob. It reminds me of Sut Jolly's advertising in the End of the World video, if you remember that.
Oh, very well. Yes.
I didn't understand the bit about printing organs. That seemed kind of crazy. It did seem to me that it shouldn't be so shocking, as Robin said, that
Protection of the elderly and the immunocompromised, but let's let the rest free. It's a very important document. Anyway, so the second truth, as we're now beginning to learn, finally, we reported on this at Vermont Independent a year and a half ago. The novel SARS-CoV-2 virus is a chimeric virus, which is to say it's a hybridized, human-made virus, funded in part by the US National Institute of Health, that's Fauci's organization, and weaponized via gain of function lab experimentation. And this goes back almost 20 years in a collaboration between China and the United States. And it took getting Trump out of office and people waking up from their slumber and getting over their Trump derangement syndrome so that we could actually have an honest conversation about this. It's a shame it took so long. If you didn't see the comedian Jon Stewart on Stephen Colbert's show 3 nights ago, talking to the camera about this because Colbert refused to entertain the conversation, you can watch that on YouTube. It was fascinating.
Yeah, I saw it.
It was fascinating and long overdue, long overdue. So truth number 3, COVIDtopia. So I refer to COVIDtopia as kind of this imagined utopian community where we're all going to be completely safe because we're all locked in our homes, masked, with pizzas being shoved under the door, and we've collapsed our small business economy and destroyed the next generation of children by punishing them with all of these grotesque abusive practices. That's COVIDtopia, right? So COVIDtopia's biggest shares fund and fuel the 24/7 mainstream media news coverage about this event. I hope that's obvious to most of you. All you have to do is watch the advertisements in between segments of Rachel Maddow or Laura Ingraham or Tucker Carlson or Wolf Blitzer or whoever. And Leslie, of course, I'm channeling our good work in the media literacy space for that one. Truth number 4, big tech. I've never seen so much censorship on big tech platforms on anything as I have with the COVID. Censors in US and the mainstream media marginalizes all COVID questions and debates. I myself have had half a dozen videos removed from YouTube simply for talking about the COVID.
This one will be.
It's fascinating. My reporting at Vermont Independent is littered with dead YouTube links from videos of medical professionals, doctors, PhDs from around the world sounding the alarm on this and having their voices systematically removed. It's like a graveyard.
Wow.
Yeah, people are like, Rob, you should take those down and replace them with BitChute and Odyssey, streaming platforms where they're not being censored. Like, oh no, I want people to remember just how much censorship there has been and continues to be. I had a video removed last week. Fascinating. Number 5, I'll highlight, that might help. Truth number 5, COVID. So this has to do with COVID death data. COVID conflict of interest, computer modeling and death data counting are inaccurate, misleading, and dangerous. And again, we had to have Trump, and I had a choice. I made the choice, but I'm not back at the farmer's market this summer because I didn't want to do that again. Fortunately, we're opening up. That's nice. Okay, the vaccines. All right, and I'm going to use air quotes here. COVID vaccines disguise experimental, untested human cell reprogramming gene therapy technologies whose health consequences, pro or con, remain unknown, although that is changing. That is changing. This is a very controversial one, I know. The inventor of mRNA technology, Dr. Robert Malone, has just gone on record last week as saying he is deeply concerned about the emergency use of these untrialed technologies because we simply don't have clinical trial data. If you read the fine print from the pharmaceutical companies who claimed that these technologies were safe and effective based on their trial data, they cherry-picked the data. If you're curious to find out more about how they did this, it's in the Truth About COVID-19 book, the one I shared with you earlier. And I've written quite extensively about how they did this on Independent too. It's very important that people understand this. There is no clinical trial data. And I'm sorry if you've gotten the injections, you are part of the experiment. You are part of the trial. And it brings me no joy to say that. My entire family has made that decision. I have not. It's been very difficult. And then finally, number 10, COVID will never go away if the COVID-topians have their way. And I would argue that the COVID-topians overlap quite extensively with Klaus Schwab Economic Forum, the United Nations, the Davos crowd, the Gates crowd. I mean, they're all more or less all at the same cocktail parties having the same conversations about the future of the human species. So, and then my conclusion, of course, we have to transcend this. So those are sort of 10 viral truths that it's taken me 18 months to sort of begin to figure out. And I use the word truth with a small t, not a capital T, because it's an evolved conversation and we're learning more every day. And I think it's really important to acknowledge that. We just have about 15 minutes, and I hope that so just to sort of wrap that up. So in my mind, if you want to understand the Great Reset and the Fourth Industrial Revolution and what these people like Klaus Schwab have in store for the human species, simply look at the past 18 months of COVID protocols, and you'll get a pretty clear sense of the direction they want us to go. Constant surveillance, a complete loss of privacy, economic dependence instead of independence, or to our point of earlier, interdependence, et cetera, et cetera.
So
How
go ahead.
does the virus spread?
So how many of you are familiar with the difference between germ theory and terrain theory?
And what? What's the second one?
Terrain, T-E-R-R-A-N, like the landscape, terrain theory.
Not me.
So this is a very important distinction, and I've written quite a bit about this at Vermont Independent. So let me give you an example. If you have an aquarium in your living room, and the fish in your aquarium are sick, they are diseased, a jurist would say, vaccinate the fish. A terrain theorist would say, clean the tank water.
Yeah. Yeah.
In other words, terrain theory suggests, and there's a 2-year-old debate between the terrain theorists and the germ theorists. The germ theorists are winning right now, by the way. You may have figured that out. Over how diseases like alleged viruses, which are allegedly contagious, allegedly spread from one human to another, from one species to another. If they go zoonotic, they jump species, right? Was the official story for a long time. I think it's been disproven or is about to be. So when people say, well, I am sick with COVID-19 or the symptoms that we're calling COVID-19, the assumption we've been programmed to make because of 18 months of 24/7 COVID-aganda, let's say, is that there is a contagious disease running amok. That is recent story. If you scroll down to the below the fold, all of these documents and videos and all that stuff, books are there. So I hope you'll avail yourselves of those and spread the good word. And I really hope all of you will get outside this summer and enjoy being fully human again, and in the company of your friends and family and neighbors, and talk to each other and listen to each other. And I so appreciate the work that VICII is doing. And I visited the school or the center where Sandy's has an office, and that's a really important little place in Burlington. And we gotta keep nurturing that too. So.
Mm.
Can I say one thing about Rob that I didn't mention before we quit? And that is that I first met Rob through his struggle for Vermont independence from this great United States. And he was basically described himself, I hope I'm getting this right, as a secessionist. He was in favor of